Hey there, cats and kitties. I'm the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on the new Star Trek Discovery teaser trailer that was released recently as of the time of this recording for the brand new television series that's meant to debut via CBS streaming services in 2017, as well as an overview of my thoughts on the brand new Star Trek feature film, Star Trek Beyond, as directed by Justin Lin. I'll try to keep that as spoiler-free as possible, just again giving a sort of overview of my thoughts on the film. But starting with this Star Trek Discovery teaser, I believe it's called the test flight of the U.S.S. Discovery, and it just had me all kinds of stoked. And I gotta say, after the down note that was the CBS rules and regulations for Star Trek fan productions and things of that sort, just being highly depressed about all of that as a Trekkie, as a Star Trek fan, basically seeing the ruination of such series as Star Trek Continues, the works of James Cawley, and other productions, it's very much a welcome change of pace to have something happy to talk about in the Star Trek franchise. And again, with this teaser, the thing that stoked me from right out of the gate was the fact that it is highly, highly influenced by some of the earliest Ralph McQuarrie concept art for Star Trek Phase 2, the design of the ship, the asteroid base. I mean, these are things that when I've looked through my book, The Art of Star Trek, and I've seen these pieces, Phase 2 having been what was planned to be Star Trek's return to television screens post, of course, the cancellation of the original series, as well as the animated series, which had run its course. They were planning on bringing Star Trek back to television, and eventually Phase 2 would evolve into what we now know as Star Trek the Motion Picture. And certain of those earliest concept art pieces for the redesign of the Enterprise, of course, in the film we would end up getting a just slightly redesigned ship. The designs by McQuarrie were wholly different from anything we'd seen thus far, and they always stood out to me as being just very intriguing, and I'd always lamented the fact that we'd never actually seen something along those lines in any of the Star Trek series. This is the first time we're actually seeing a heavily influenced ship design based on it, and it just has me stoked. Again, seeing the ship pulling out of an asteroid base, very similar to what we see in the McQuarrie art concept pieces. It just gave me goosebumps, and everything from like the triple Bussard collector heads on the nacelles, and the blue of the impulse drive, the round, of course, circular saucer section, and the sort of triangular shape that is the secondary hull. It just looks absolutely gorgeous, even if it's not finalized footage, as I come to understand. I don't know whether they put this out there just to get sort of fan feedback, and I know it's been very divisive. You have people hating on it and calling it unoriginal. You have people who are basically like me, who are through the roof and think it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's just ramping up the excitement for. And it leaves me with, all the same kinds of questions I've had. Who is going to be cast in the series? What will the uniforms look like, and all that kind of stuff. Just highly, highly speculative in nature is this, but it's highly exciting to me. And I think the only time I've ever actually seen an asteroid base the likes of the McQuarrie art in Star Trek, and I could be wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I have not seen fully The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, was in the 4th season 2-parter for Star Trek Enterprise, In a Mirror Darkly, where we basically see, as a throwback to the original series episode, The Tholian Web, the U.S.S. Defiant, which had gone missing in that episode, actually appears in the Mirror Universe in the past, in the Enterprise era, if you will, in the timeline, in the Mirror Universe, as, being basically held by Tholians in an asteroid base. So that was really the first time I ever recall seeing a base that, answered to those McQuarrie concept pieces, and seeing the ship as it's designed in this teaser, seeing that asteroid base. I just can't wait to see more, and I hope we will see more along those lines. And of course, as I say, I'll also be giving my thoughts on Star Trek Beyond. Coming out of this movie, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, let me say from right out of the gate. But coming out of the movie, especially having been directed by a director that is most well known for fast-paced action, which is not to say that this movie does not have fast-paced action. It thoroughly does, and it's pretty gripping and everything like that, very much in the vein of what we've seen in the 2 J.J. Abrams directed films in this, whatever you want to call it, Abrams-verse timeline or Kelvin timeline. It was kind of a surprise to me to come out of this film feeling as though it's the closest of the three new Star Trek films that gets to feeling like the original series. I think a large chunk of that has to do with the rapport and the characterizations between Bones McCoy and Spock, who spend a lot of time together in this film, bickering as well as getting philosophical, and it really harkens back to the vibe of those characters from the original series, and I thoroughly love that. You get that gist in some of the teasers and trailers, as well as TV spots. New characters like the female Jayla, the alien who is very much in line with our protagonists, another factor you gain from the teasers and trailers. I thoroughly thought she was badass as all hell, kick-ass as all hell, funny at times, and there was a lot of great humor and stuff like that. She spends most of her time with Scotty, and that's pretty funny, I have to say another factor that you gain from seeing the teasers and trailers is the destruction of the Enterprise, and just as it was going back to Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, it got me misty-eyed, seeing the destruction of the Enterprise, even though I had a sense that, well, things will be righted in the end. There will be another ship to come along in the night, NCC 1701A, as it was in, the end of The Voyage Home, which followed on from The Search for Spock, and such along those lines. It's always emotional to see the Enterprise meeting its doom, meeting its end in one way, shape, or form, when it's not in an episodic framework like The Next Generation, where you might have time tripping, and by the end of the episode everything will right itself and nothing really happened to the Enterprise. When it's said and done, seeing that ship basically destroyed, seeing the saucer flying into the atmosphere of this alien planet, never to come up again, it does get me a little emotional. But the overall story of Star Trek Beyond, the beats and the feel of it really harkened back to my mind the original series. And even, going to like certain episodes, as far as the villain is concerned, the alien Crawl, played by Idris Elba, I think through the course of the film, his arc very sort of was in homage to certain episodes, such as Patterns of Force, Bread and Circuses, the Omega Glory, and even the Turnabout Intruder to certain, extents, as far as, basically what we find out, the revelations we find out about his villain character, where he harkens from, what his motivations are, why he's doing what he's doing, effectively, and just the shape, the form and function of who he is very much harkens back to those elements in those episodes aforementioned in, the original series. And I really loved the growth of Kirk in this movie. It's something that sometimes I've taken issue with, that Kirk just kind of cheated his way to the command of the Enterprise. And finally, after the last film, the loss of, Admiral Pike, and he's soul-searching because it's very close to his birthday in this film. Another fact you can get, based on one of the teasers, a sort of dialogue sequence between he and McCoy. It's his birthday, and he's thinking about his father, who died on his birthday, the day he was born, back in the first, 2009 Abrams Trek movie. And just the growth of his character, seeing how much he's weighing, how much his crew mean to him, how much Spock means to him, and things of that sort. The coming together of these characters, it was just a really, fun time, a fun movie to watch. And I love toward the end, this really isn't spoilery, but they end each film with the sort of slogan, if you will, the mission statement, as Kirk put it at the end of Into Darkness when he recited Space, the Final Frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise, its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. I love that you hear all of the main crew reciting this, rather than just Kirk, or rather than Leonard Nimoy's Spock. And for those wondering, there is a follow-up after the untimely death of Leonard Nimoy. There is an homage to him, as well as Anton Yelchin, who, there's been some question about if they make another film, should they recast Chekhov, or should they leave that, void basically as an homage to Anton Yelchin? And my own personal thought you have a character like Jayla, who by the end of the film has kind of, become one of the comrades in arms of the Enterprise crew. Why couldn't they have her take over as the tactical officer of the Enterprise in a future installment? Something along those lines, rather than recasting the character or, doing something that would sort of dishonor, if you will, Anton Yelchin's performance, because it was a memorable performance and he will be missed. And, it would be one of those things where I'd like to just move on from it. So, overall, Star Trek Beyond was a blast. I absolutely had a fun time with it, loved it. I'm not sure if it's my favorite of the brand new Star Trek films. It could be. I want to see it a couple more times before I, make any sort of judgments along those lines. But it's definitely up there with my enjoyment of the Abrams films and all the Star Trek films as a whole, really. There's something for everybody in all of the various Star Trek series and all of the various Star Trek films, whether it be drama, action, comedy. And these, Abrams-verse or Kelvin timeline films are no exception to that rule. They are welcomed by me just as much as the original series films and the Next Generation films and all of the various Star Trek series, as well as this new one, which, as I say, I was thoroughly stoked by the Star Trek Discovery teaser as well. So I think it's becoming a good time to be a Star Trek fan. It's definitely welcome, as I said at the start of the video, to have some happy thoughts, to basically be able to put into words about Star Trek as a franchise and its latest incarnations. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. If you've seen the Star Trek Discovery teaser, if you've seen Star Trek Beyond, what you thought overall of the film and the teaser, respectively, and whether they've excited you, whether you want nothing to do with them. Anything goes in the comments below. Just love having that conversation. And otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well. And I'll catch you all later. Peace.